Hey everyone, it's Stephen Semple. I'm here with Gary Bernier. We're with the business growth guys, and we're doing a series of videos around selling your business because it's something that we've got tons of experience with. We've had a number of clients who've gone through it, and we've seen some real common mistakes that have made that, frankly, have cost business owners pretty big bucks. And one of the really common ones that we've seen is actually how people go about the process of selling the business. And Gary's got a great analogy that he shared with me in terms of, hey, we've all bought and sold homes. Most of us have not bought and sold businesses. So Gary, let's talk about the parallel that you see between homes and businesses.
Sure. The first thing is let's all agree that most people look at a home as a great big asset that they have. And if you're selling your business, you probably think of it as equally as big, or if not bigger, asset that you're trying to sell. So what I want to do here is sort of highlight and contrast the differences between the approach that people use to sell in their house versus the approach that we see most business owners go down for selling their business. And sort of say you really should be looking at this from a different angle. So that's what the analogy is all about, is sort of changing your perspective and sort of putting it in and looking at one sales process versus what typically happens to the business owner when they. So sort of the first concept that happens, Steve, I'm going to ask you, would you sell your own house?
Oh God, no.
Why not?
I don't want to. Well, a couple of things. One is I love my house. I don't know how to show my house for the most value. I don't want to do the open houses. And frankly, I also don't think my strength is in negotiating real estate deals.
Okay, and those are a couple of really good reasons. Let's just walk through what Steve just said. He's emotionally attached to his house. I'm going to guess the business owner is emotionally attached to their business. I'm going to guess, because most of us are, otherwise we wouldn't be doing that every day. Next thing he said, I don't know how to show my house. One of the things we know about a business is, in order to sell your business, you got to make its value apparent to the buyer. Same as doing, why do you put, these days, why does the truck show up the front? Why do you take 90% of your furniture and all your pictures and stuff it in a truck and move it out of there and stage your house? It's to make your house have the highest perceived value to the buyer. Well, there's some serious steps that we're going to take you through in other videos that talk about how to push that value up of your business that many business owners don't. And one of them we've already talked about, which is you've got to keep growing your business. So don't miss out on that. But Steve, you also said you're not in the business of sort of marketing or finding buyers for your house.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
So if you're not going to sell yourself, what would you do, Steve? What does a typical homeowner do today?
Typical homeowner hires a real estate agent, and they find a good one who they believe can market the house well and negotiate the best deal.
Okay, so I hire a consultant. Really,
Yep.
the real estate agent is a person that we believe has specialized expertise and experience in housing sales
Exactly right.
and getting the seller the maximum amount of value, right? The one you're hiring is working on your behalf to get the seller the maximum value, right?
Exactly right.
How many business owners do we see hire consultants?
Not enough.
Not enough.
Some do, many don't. What
So
we happen a lot of times, especially in the scenario where they get approached by somebody, they go, "Well, I've been approached by somebody, so I don't need to hire a consultant now because I'm just going to talk to this guy." Wrong.
right, and this is where I got to share that sort of the Microsoft story,
Yeah.
because Steve's kind of opened up the opportunity for this. What many business owners don't realize is there are acquisition teams. People that buy businesses are buyers. So here's the example I've got for you. I was listening to a talk by the Microsoft acquisition team one day, and the guy told this story about going into this small software company with 8 guys and saying, on Friday afternoon, we thought we had the deal done for $8 million, $1 million per person working there. These guys were each going to walk out millionaires. Said, we thought we had the deal done. We showed up on Monday. And all of a sudden the deal had gone to 40 mil. What was the difference between Friday and Monday? They hired the consultant. The consultant said, boys, you can get more, and here's where the value is, and was able to back up the 40. So now you went from 1 million to 5 per person, if you want to do the quick math, over a weekend, because they hired a consultant. And I still remember the person putting up their hand and asking them, so what did you do? Microsoft said, we spent the 40 mil. Because to them, they could still multiply it multiple times. So the moral of the story here, guys, is there are people that specialize in selling the business. One of the big things that they give you is they give you some time back, because they're working on your behalf, much like the real estate agent works on your behalf, which means you can spend more time working on your business and less time dealing with some of the nonsense that goes along with selling your business.
It is a very time-consuming process.
Yeah, not to be underestimated.
Here's how I can put it to somebody. Have you ever been audited by the government? Was that a time-consuming process? Multiply it by 10. Because you're going to be doing the same things, producing financial reports, giving analysis, having meetings. I mean, it's a time-consuming process.
Right, because the buyer wants to look for all the skeletons.
Yep.
They need to find all the skeletons for their purposes. So, Steve, when I sell the house, is there a contract?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is it fairly standardized, though? In most places, is it a fairly standardized contract?
Yep.
Okay. What about selling a business? Is it standard, or is it, oh, it's thicker?
Yeah, it's thick.
So in Ontario, we have like a 4-page contract for selling a house, and part of the 4th page is for putting in the conditions. And these days, given the market, not a lot of conditions being written up. But in a transaction where you're selling your business, what does the buyer? I think they got a few conditions that they tend to like to write in there.
Oh, there's lots. There's compete clauses. There's how long are you going to be able to work for the business. There's indemnities in terms of what are you identifying the buyer from and not the buyer from. There's disclosure agreements in terms of statements of this, that. Oh no, it's complicated. It is complicated.
Right, and all of those points would be a negotiating point in theory.
Oh, not in theory, in practice.
Oh, in practice. Okay. But in order to negotiate them in practice, what do you need to have? A little bit of experience and knowledge about each one of those conditions, right? Because we're not talking whether the appliances are in and out here. We're not talking that simple, right?
No, exactly right. Exactly right. No, it's complicated, and each one of those points is a negotiating point.
Because
things, and the interesting thing is, some of them have tax consequences as well. So this is where it gets really interesting and exciting.
Because it's either money in or out of the business owner's pocket based on each one of those clauses.
Well, and some of those clauses impact whether it's employment income or selling of a business income, which are taxed at different rates. So this stuff is not simple.
Right. So guys, you're as Steve says, if you get that far down the process, you're going to be presented with the big contract. It's going to have lots of options, lots of conditions on it. And again, you're not expecting those conditions. You don't know what those conditions are. This is where the consultant can be really valuable, because they know that. And as to Steve's point, if you don't have an accountant that's familiar with business sales and the tax implications, you also need an expert accountant at that point. And you may even need a lawyer that's familiar with what's nicknamed mergers and accusations, or mergers and acquisitions, because again, they're used to looking at those clauses and know which way that they're played out. So the team you put around you, not just the consultant, you might need a specialized accountant and a specialized lawyer to help you through that last 10% or 20% of the dealings. So now, Steve, I want to back up a step because we got all the way to the contract. What does a real estate agent do for us when we say we want to sell our house? What's one of the first things they do for us when we say we want to sell our house?
Oh, line up buyers, right?
They line up buyers. And how do they line up the buyers?
They market the house. They make it look good. They make it look pretty. They slap, whatever needs to be slapped on. They make recommendations on that. Here you want to do this, this, and this, because it'll make your house easier to sell and more attractive to more buyers.
So they stage it. They do a virtual tour. They take pictures. They put together a kit, and they go out in their world on the MLS system, but they go out to the world to market it to as many potential buyers and other agents as possible.
Yeah, and in the ideal world, what they want to have is multiple buyers.
Right, because they want to have multiple buyers, because the best thing that can happen in a real estate transaction is called a bid, what?
Bidding war.
Bidding war, because what happens in a bidding war? The price goes typically up.
Yeah.
So, Steve, if we hire a good consultant, do they know all the other people in the mergers and accusations business, the mergers and acquisitions business that tend to buy and sell in that space?
They do. They do. And their goal is they absolutely want to have multiple interest, because the scary part is when there's one buyer, because then all the power is with the buyer.
Right. And you don't want to fall in love with that buyer, do you?
No, you sure don't.
Right. Because do you care who buys your house?
No, I don't.
Right.
I care that the check clears.
So does your agent. So does the agent working, because that's what they're paid on. Like most of the consultants that you would get in this space, they're also paid on the conclusion and the, you know, they get a bump and a piece of the action. So again, should you fall in love with your buyer? No, you want to have multiple buyers, because you really shouldn't care who buys your business. Right. And how often do we find the business owner that thinks they can sell their business all by themselves getting stuck with one buyer, falling in love with them, and then getting screwed over by them at the 11th hour?
That's almost always the case. That's basically the rule. We've seen a few exceptions, but that's essentially the rule.
So guys, this kind of wraps up my, hopefully I've given you enough to think about, that when you're selling your house, you do all of these things to sell that asset, and you leverage a system that's there. So hopefully we've exposed to you that there is help out there for you when you go to sell your business, and you should go get help, and you should expect to go down a process of putting the business up for sale. Even if somebody taps you on the shoulder, your first step should be to attract another buyer to create competition. And then the consultant's there to work you through the process, save you time and energy, because it's going to be long and arduous. And in the end, you're going to get more for your business if you do it the right way, instead of doing it all by yourself. Steve, anything else to add?
No, I think you've definitely, it's definitely the model to follow.
All right, cool. So guys, stay tuned to our other sessions, where we will get into the exact steps of what the buying cycle looks like. And, we'll talk about public companies and how they sort of approach this buying and selling, because you might be, the best scenario is to be bought by somebody bigger than you, right? And what you want is minimum two bigger than you fighting over you is what you're looking for at a minimum, right? 3 is better, but you want somebody bigger than you fighting over you. And we'll talk about that, why that happens when we talk about sort of the big companies buying smaller companies, and why they do that, what advantages they get from doing that, and understanding those advantages puts, again, power back in the buyer. This whole series that we're doing is to try and get as much power back into your chair as possible, and not let you give it away to the buyer. So thanks for tuning in, and continue to watch the upcoming segments.